189. Detente. Chalcedon Report number 196, December 1981. One of the central aspects of the modern age is the politics of detente. Detente represents a development with deep roots in modern philosophy and a close relationship to the popular culture of our time. In the 1960s, one expression of this faith was summarized in the maxim, "Better read than dead." It is important for us to recognize that this is a very logical, not an illogical faith. It is grounded not in cowardice, treason, or an evil design, but on a humanistic religious presupposition. One of our key problems today is our unwillingness to face up to the basic premises of our position and the positions held by others. A humanistic faith sees the world as having evolved out of nothing, a product of chance development, and as having only those values imputed to it by man. There is no inherent or created value in life in the universe. Man creates values and imputes them at will to whatever he chooses. Man can thus give central value to progress in technology in one area and despise it in another, favouring instead of progress in technology, zero economic growth and the environment. The closest a humanist comes to an unchanging value is himself. And even here, we have seen humanistic social orders sacrifice present man to future and ideal man. In brief, humanism has no fixed and unchanging principles. It has no Jesus Christ, nor a 10 Commandments. Its standards are situation ethics. They are variable in terms of circumstances and human needs. Law, too, becomes variable. It is a product of man's experience, and is thus a changing product of change. Over 10 years ago, a frustrated lawyer remarked to me, "The law books only tell me what the law was yesterday. The judge decides what it is today." When we turn to biblical faith, we are in a very different world. We are here in the world of God's fiat and His unchanging word. Biblical faith requires confrontation. In a meaningless word, nothing is worth dying for, and detente makes very obvious sense. If there is no God to declare that things are clearly good or evil, and that blessings and curses, heaven and hell, follow our moral decisions, then nothing is really worth living for or dying for. In a meaningless world where nothing is worth living or dying for, men will be ready to do anything if the price is right. The presupposition then is this: the other side believes as little as we do in an absolute meaning, and thus they too will believe in compromise as a way of life. Both sides then enter into detente, each seeking to gain the utmost advantage from the situation. Both operate in terms of advantage, not principle. Without principles, detente is inevitable and necessary. It is a religious requirement of humanism. Wars do result, not because of principled opposition, but because of lost or imperiled advantages. Biblical faith, on the other hand, requires confrontation. This confrontation can take two forms. The first, basic and necessary one, is evangelism, with conversion as the goal. To men without hope, it offers hope. Its power is the obvious witness to a life with meaning or freedom, to a world of order under the triune God. This witness is both a personal missionary endeavour and a political witness as well. The dream of America once dominated the world and is still not entirely lost, despite our humanistic politics. The American Christian missionary presence is still a potent world force for Christ and His kingdom. The evangelical impact on American politics in 1980 and 1981 stirs up daily wrath in the press and from politicians because it reintroduces into politics a dimension which politicians largely have sought to avoid: moral confrontation. The hatred for all such evangelical groups is not because of their real or fancied blunders, but because they have reintroduced biblical morality into politics. Since 1960, politicians have congratulated themselves on eliminating the moral dimension. John F. Kennedy saw future problems as simply technical ones. Richard M. Nixon, with his China policy, made central to American foreign policy the ancient and evil balance of power politics of Europe. The Monroe Doctrine, and even more, the important but now forgotten Polk Doctrine, were aimed against the introduction of power politics into the Americas. All this is now forgotten. The United States abandoned moral considerations from politics. The age of détente has supposedly begun. At the same time, however, Christian Reconstructionism was infiltrating one area after another. The biblical mandate for every area of life and thought has been increasingly apparent to people, not only in the church, but in politics, education, the sciences, and more. As we have noted, the first and primary mandate of biblical faith is evangelism, with conversion as the goal. The second requirement is battle against evil. Battle takes various forms. A significant aspect of this battle on the current scene is in the church and state conflict, especially with respect to the resistance of Christian schools. The growing anger of the humanists against Christians has as its basis their inability to understand why these people will not compromise. For the humanists, the course of reason requires compromise. In a meaningless world, reason has no grounds for intransigence. How can there be irreconcilable differences in Darwin's universe? True, there are humanists, usually conservatives, who take a hard line in things, but they do so on borrowed premises. There is no valid ground for a principled and unwavering stand on non-biblical grounds. Only traditionalism and nostalgia inform such behaviour. Ironically, this century of relativism and compromise is the bloodiest century in all of history. Humanism, in essence, has one, quote, virtue, end quote, compromise, the coming together to bury ostensibly superficial differences. It also has one, quote, sin, end quote, coercion, but it does love to sin. The spirit of compromise and détente is the desire to gain an advantage over the other party. It denies absolutes. Self-interest governs the coming together, and when the self-interest is violated or outraged beyond a point, self-interest demands coercion. The politics of compromise becomes a politics of coercion, because if nothing is worth living or dying for, then submission is the, quote, reasonable, end quote, course for the opposition. The century of relativism and compromise has become the century of coercion. The implications for law are great. If law ceases to be the instrument of principled morality, of good against evil, it becomes an instrument, then, of power, and the end it serves is power. Accordingly, law is less and less today a protection of our persons and freedom from evil, and more an instrument of statist power. The modern state abandoned God's covenant law to establish itself on the myth of the social contract, a détente between men to create a state ostensibly, but more a détente between men and the state. In that détente, man has been the loser. Only the return of Christian covenant man to the political scene will make the state the loser. Christ calls us to be dominion men,